Hello, Heya and Woomy. So, first off, thank you so much for the positive reception on my no hacks, no weapon run. I never guessed my sleepy little channel would jump from 20ish subs to over 150, but y'all came out in force for that video. I'm not used to anything I make normally getting nearly that much attention, so this kinda blew me away. Everyone was so awesome in the comments, and a few people left suggestions for other challenge runs, so why not give them a shot with a few more encore challenges? To address the manta ray in the room, I made a pngtuber. I need to draw a bunch more poses for them still, but I've got a few dozen for now at least. I'm going to try to do more commentated videos and edit down runs, partly because the hour-long runs are a big ask for people to watch the full thing, and partly because it's something I've wanted to do for a while, injecting more of my personality into videos and practice speaking more, so I can eventually cover more video game history, design, retrospectives, and just about the games that I really love. But I've got a lot of voice dysphoria and rarely speak in real life, so recording is really emotionally challenging for me. I'm going to try to give it a shot for a few videos though. If you prefer the full uncommented video, I'll try to always keep that as an option linked down in the description below. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get started. A couple folks in the comments mentioned that they focused on burst bombs in their run. It's something I'd considered for my first no-weapon run, but I opted for the suction bomb kit since that came with triple ink strike. Burst bombs were my second option, but the kit with burst bombs comes with Kraken, and I have an unfortunate history of trying to use Kraken in these challenge runs. But that's okay, this time we can just ban specials. Make it a real sub-weapon only run. Burst bomb's pretty cheap. If we could just get some ink saver sub and explosion knockback going, we could be spamming it constantly and launching enemies everywhere. It'd be so great, we'd just be counting on getting ink saver sub. It's not like we wouldn't get it, right? Just like how we didn't get main fire speed in the blaster run, or charge speed in the charger run, or no sub saver in the no weapon run. that can't happen again. That'd be ridiculous. What are the odds? I mean, that'd be crazy, right? This is going to be a long run, isn't it? The first thing we do is turn off all hacks aside from risky rewards. I also disable my main weapon and special weapon buttons in the switch settings, so I don't accidentally fire either arrow muscle memory, thus invalidating the run. We're also going to be taking a little break as well. We don't want to take any drone bomb or killer whale chips either. For the first floor, I opt to take the splash radius chip and choose the uphill push floor. Off to a good start, splash radius will make our burst bombs deal with swarms of enemies much easier. One of the things I noticed is that burst bombs can barely push the infinity ball, way less than I could with any other main weapon or bomb since it does such a small amount of damage. After trying in vain to shove the 8-ball uphill and not being able to throw burst bombs fast enough, I eventually give up and just resort to shoving it up myself. For the second floor, I choose a hindrance damage chip. I know burst bomb doesn't deal a lot of damage, but it inks a large area quickly, so the extra bonus damage on enemies would help me clear out swarms faster. And our objective this time is tower escort. This floor, dude. This was a slog. That weak damage from burst bombs, that also counts for the tower too. I could barely clear the checkpoints. I'd throw burst bomb after burst bomb at the tower, but by the time my ink recovered so I could throw more, the checkpoint would just push the tower all the way back. It didn't help that I was so far off the ground I could just barely make progress each time. Thankfully in these early levels there's a limited number of enemies that stop respawning. But lesson learned, I'm not going to choose another tower escort mission again. Seriously? On the bright side, one of them came with 2 ink recovery chips. These will help with reloading the burst bombs, but not as much as you'd expect. Unfortunately, the ink tank doesn't start immediately refilling after throwing a sub-weapon, so the burst bomb still can't be spammed any faster, but it does give me more room to refill my ink tank in a pinch. Thankfully, between that and the floor geometry letting me stay closer to the tower, this floor goes a bit smoother than the last. Next we grab a Splat ink recovery chip. That'll help us even further with ink management, but we do so little damage we're going to struggle with securing kills in the first place to get that bonus. It will help us when dealing with consistent swarms of small enemies though. On this floor I like to push the first ball along the outside perimeter of the map to the first portal, then try to launch the next one into the bowl in the middle. With most weapons, you can do it fast enough that the Lintos can't get through the boxes in time to push it away. The burst bomb is a bit slow, but I still manage to complete it before the gelatins can cause too many problems. On floor 5 we have our first portal clearing objective, and I take lucky bombs. It'll be a bit difficult for us to build chains at first, but I have no doubt it'll be a major aid to us later in the run. I kite the enemies around the room using burst bombs to keep them at bay, use the springing Spagatos leftover springs to clear swarms, and when the spawns slow down I situate myself under the portals to pop them. Very, very slowly. For our next selection, I can only really take the ink damage, since it's the only chip on offer that'll even affect us. That splash radius chip from earlier starts to really come in clutch, and the aaaaambos are quickly all caught in the explosions or launched away for a very quick clear. After that, we take another splash radius chip and have our first zones mission. Our burst bomb's radius is now large enough that we can capture a zone in a single bomb, and it's pretty clear that the escaping aaaaambos and splash zones will be our safest floor objectives. Unfortunately, it takes 2 burst bombs to kill the drizzling capricciosos, and who knows how many bombs to kill the beefier enemies, so I'd still choose to kite the Lintos away from the zone while I toss bombs to kill the sprinklers and recapture. Thankfully, the run is about to get much more fun, as the next floor we're given the option to take splash damage, and the Explosion Festival floor to test it out with. We stick close to the blowfish and use the burst bombs to wear down the portals and keep the enemies at bay, and use the blowfish explosions to clear enemies when they get too close. With the next floor, we take Mobile Ink Recovery, quickly kill some more aaaaambos, and then we're on to our first boss, Parallel Cannon. Outnumbered and facing enemies with main weapons, special weapons, and stronger bombs than us, I make the completely tactical decision to hide on top of the center platform like a little baby coward. Thankfully, we're given 3 armor boxes when intensifying Harmony as your first boss floor, and our burst bombs let us clear out the smaller gelatins that spawn very quickly. I focus on trying to ink under where the bots will land for the bonus hindrance damage, and use my bigger splash radius to toss bombs slightly over them and strike from behind when they approach my platform. Thankfully they're pretty squishy, so 2 explosions and a bit of ink floor damage will take care of each. With that, we've cleared our first boss and the floor difficulty ramps up. At the vending machine following the boss, I grab another splash radius and ink damage chip. On floor 12, we're given the option between main damage distant, rush ink coverage, and 2 rush attacks. None of which affect us, I think. Rush attack is kinda weird with what it affects. For some reason it affects damage done by splash wall, but I don't think it affects burst bombs at least. I choose the aaaaambo floor thinking it'll be the easiest, but pretty much immediately I feel the difficulty boost. The battering Lintos still have too much HP for me to comfortably take on groups of them, so I have to carefully navigate around. At one point I get cornered by a sprinkler and Lento, but I manage to use the burst bomb's knockback to barely make a getaway. Fortunately, the springs left behind by the Spagatos give us some much needed kick to catch up with the aaaaambos and clean up the gelatins. The danger modifier on floor 13 is lights out, because who needs a good viewing experience on YouTube? I've done this floor many times before in better lit conditions, so I remember the floor geometry pretty well for the most part. Most of the enemies are smaller and easily taken out with burst bombs. The Lintos are still a bit beefy, but I'm able to hold them back with the burst bombs long enough to clear the stage for a disc piece drop chip. For the next floor, we choose another lucky bomb drop chip, and are politely asked to not use our main weapon. Well, do I have good news for you? To clear the portals, we burst bomb full swarms of linguendos, causing the lucky bombs to deal a majority of the damage to the portals for us for an easy clear. 15 ends up being a dud. We're offered both a drone weapon and special charge up, neither of which we can use. I go for the vending machine instead, but that also only has a special weapon and another special charge up. And then on 16 we have 2 normal difficulty floors with chips that won't help us, and a rigorous floor with poison ink that's Tower Escort. Ugh. It's always the Tower Escort floors. Always. This floor was brutal. There are swarms of enemies usually headed by battering Lentos, which are still beefy enough to provide a threat, even if the poison ink is helping to wear them down. But those noble Mente snipers, god. They stand far enough back that even approaching them to take them down is dangerous. But they're still able to nail you the entire time through the crowds you're trying to defend yourself from, and when you're trying to get the tower across the checkpoints. And those checkpoints, they're suspended off the ground too, so you either have to toss a burst bomb at the tower to get more progress, but potentially be out of ink and unable to defend yourself, or toss it at the floor to deal splash damage to opponents, but contribute minimal ink to the tower. Eventually you have to finish the tower track by pushing into mid, but the floor there is uninkable, and you'll have several snipers trying to take shots at you through the crowds of enemies. Even if you do manage to push through, the Noble Mentes take several burst bombs to kill, which leaves you defenseless if you get swarmed, especially if you're on that uninkable surface. Eventually I decide it's safest to just build up Pearl's step-off song to clear the normal enemies, then push right into mid directly into a sniper platform, and spam bombs at the tower until I can just barely clear the final checkpoint. Once we've escaped that whole ordeal, we're faced with another 3 options, where the only chip that actually affects us will be on a tower escort floor, with snipers, for poison ink again. Critically, Ceaseless Open Season Uneven only has 1 spawn point, and there's a lot more weak enemies, so I bombard it with my burst bomb, keeping both the enemy numbers down, and lets us build up for Lucky Bomb to clear out the Noble Mente snipers before they become a problem. If you can believe it, on the 18th floor we're offered yet another poison ink chip. I might have terrible luck with getting sub-saver and fire rate in these runs, but poison ink always seems to have my back. Despite another lights out floor, this is another one I've mostly memorized and can keep the Spagatos at bay. Though the poison ink hat trick isn't super helpful here, the springs can help us protect the zone, and the only other real threat is the occasionally spawning Noble Mente, which can be easily launched off the arena. On floor 19, we take disc drop up and have another portal floor. Our ink is so poisonous now that the Geldins cave and successfully climb up the ramp to us in time before succumbing to the damage. From my vantage point, I weaken one portal and set off a chain reaction to detonate the other. After that, we're on to our second boss. Pinging Marchale is typically my least favorite boss. It's not particularly difficult. I'd say the other bosses are actually way more dangerous, but I hate chasing the bounder down so much. Finally though, the low damage of burst bombs comes in handy, and it turns out burst bombs barely move the Marchale. Without it bouncing around everywhere, it doesn't spawn many enemies at all. Lobbing burst bombs was still slow to be sure. We are dealing pitifully small damage after all. But when you don't need to chase it everywhere, it actually felt a lot faster. It was still pretty silly, but it felt better than being clowned on chasing it around the arena all fight like usual. During the final phase, we carefully lined up a few tops left behind by the Accelerandos to secure our entrance into the final stretch of the spire. The floor 21 vending machine sadly offers us nothing we can use. Thinking about how hard the coming floors will be, I briefly wonder if the fall from the site would splat me before seeing what floor 22 has to offer. Again, we're given only one real option that would affect our build, so we choose Max Lucky Chain and are tasked with clearing out some aaaaambos during an arpeggio barrage. Afterwards, there's no chips that'll help us on floor 23. I'd rather avoid Cruel Sisyphean 8 in the tower floor, and that leaves us with the aaaaambo floor. I try to work my way around the edges of the arena to make an area I can herd them into, but the drizzlers and snipers make it difficult to keep a large enough area inked, or stay out of cover long enough to keep my ink tank up. At one point I even get tagged by a noblemente when I thought it didn't have a sightline on me, but I'm able to get away before it can hit me a second time. But eventually, I'm able to herd the aaaaambos together into a patch of my ink and clear them out. And then we're on to another normally difficult floor. Eternally Vigilant Soaker Brigade is normally one of my most hated floors. If you don't have the fire rate to keep the blockades extended, you can get overwhelmed with drizzlers and arpeggio missiles and enemies so quickly. I know I don't have the fire rate to actually play the stage like I'm supposed to, so instead I play as reckless as possible. I capture the zone, hop onto the enemy platform and begin tossing burst bombs to keep pressure on the spawning Accordos. Their detonations clear enemies before even giving them a chance to overwhelm me for an easy clear. Is this how the floor is supposed to be done? I think I've been doing it wrong the entire time until now. On floor 25, we're given a choice between a vending machine or 2 drone chips, so I obviously see what's in stock at the vending machine. Figuring I probably won't get a chance to spend my membucks again, I buy 3 copies of Ink Recovery, look longingly at Suction Bomb, my beloved, and take off for the final stretch of the spire. I choose Mobile Ink Recovery for my next floor reward, because the other 2 options won't affect me. Now my ink tank can refill pretty much instantly once the cooldown from throwing my sub is up, which is nice, but I still can only throw 2 bombs at once before I need to reload, albeit that reload is very quick now. It's this weird combination where I have a very spammable bomb, but not a very spammable bomb at the same time. Between the portal detonations and having lots of spinning tops to augment our damage, we clean up this floor pretty quickly. For floor 27, I grab the Swim Speed Up chip. In these runs, I typically try to take a sub-weapon that can paint a long straight line, like Curling Bomb or Fizzy Bomb, to avoid Order's Reef Slider and Stinger attacks. I know that won't be an option with the Burst Bomb, so I'm hoping the extra swim speed will make it easier to get out of the way of attacks later on. For the floor itself, the giant portals do take a lot more damage to destroy and spawn a lot of enemies, including ones that paint over my ink. The first couple we can clear safely from a distance, but for the third, the sniper towers and sheer numbers make it safer for me to focus on standing back, thinning the herd, and waiting until we get 3 disc pieces so we can use the step-off song to clear a path to the final portal. Afterwards, the game trolls us by waving 3 more chips that we can't use in our face, including Ink Saver Main. Why couldn't you be Ink Saver Sub? I go for the easiest floor, though by this point even the easy floors can overrun me with enemy swarms if I'm not careful. I have to back out of the zone at points to funnel enemies into one group and get away from the drizzlers so I can create more poison ink. Once those were taken care of, I move back in to capture the zone. On the penultimate floor, we again only have 1 chip that will realistically affect us, so we take Sticky Ink. And it's another tower escort mission. My favorite. While we can't clear the checkpoints much faster, Poison and Sticky Ink combo together really well to clear the lentos that have been so frightening up until now. It's a long trek down and back up, but by the end of the stage, we're at the top of our own tower as well. I'm kinda surprised we made it this far. I didn't expect this run to even work out without Ink Saver Sub, but here we are, with another run I once thought was scuffed. All that's in the way between us and our clear is one final showdown with Order. I'm not certain what affects the gelatins that Overlorder spawns, but we luck out and it focuses on spawning a lot of whirling Accelerandos. This could have gone a lot worse if it was Drizzlers or Noblementes. With the tops, in combination with the poison ink and lucky bombs, we're able to detonate most portals while keeping our distance, and making sure we always have a well-linked escape route in case Overlorder tries to hit us with Reef Sliders or the Stingray. It's important to play defensively, and avoid special attacks during this last phase especially, because it'll frequently use Reef Sliders or Stingray back to back. Whenever the shield drops, we strafe around its side in a circular pattern, using the burst bomb splash damage to slowly chip away at its health, only moving off the center platform if we're at risk of being hit by chump explosions or ink shots. After chipping away at Overlorder long enough... And that's how I beat Side Order with only burst bombs. If you enjoyed this run, please check out my other videos. I've completed Side Order of every weapon without hacks now, and even did another no main weapon run as well. If you got some enjoyment out of this silly misadventure, pull out your Ultra Stamp and bop the like button right over the head. Okay, for real. I'd be really thankful if you could like the video and subscribe to help me grow. What did you think of this new commentated format? If you liked it, or you didn't, or if you have feedback, or even if you want to suggest other challenge run ideas for me to suffer through, please leave a comment with your thoughts. Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and catch you next time, Squiddos!